But we're back to discuss Justice League, and if you watched our review, we both liked it okay. It's not it's not something that we're, going to go out and recommend to everybody, but if you were excited about it, or you were hoping that this would be a good DC movie and, tick all the boxes with all these characters, I think it does a fairly good job of that. You can see the sort of, like, the Joss Whedon joke buttons on scenes where, it would have ended in this sort of dark and gloomy place, and they just sort of lighten it up a little bit with a wisecrack here and there. I thought the way that they were the way they sparingly used Superman was smart, to not really bring him back until the third act and do it in the way that they did was I think that was the biggest moment in the movie, the best moment in the movie. I thought everybody's performances were really good. I was really impressed with the guy that played Cyborg. I thought he did a really good job. Gal Gadot was fine. There were a couple of line reads from her that I was a little iffy about, but it wasn't, it wasn't so bad that I actually remember what scene it was or what it was that she was saying. Just a couple of spotty places here and there. And I think this is the kind of movie I would have asked for. Like, if they had made a 3-hour version of this, I would have said, do it in 2 hours. If they'd given us a lot more backstory on the 3 new characters, I would have said, trim it down. Like, either make a standalone movie about those guys, or just give us this kind of Cliff's Notes version. And I thought they made that balance work. I think that the reason the movie's not great is because it's right down the middle. It's not too long. It doesn't have big holes in it. You're not looking at gaping plot holes or obvious weird transitions that don't make sense. Some of the stuff at the beginning did have a little bit of the Batman v Superman vibe, where scenes didn't feel connected to each other. They just kind of felt like someone edited them and said, yeah, that's a fine order, and we'll just keep it like that. But that eventually evened out. Like, once they were kind of together, it started to get more consistent. I don't
see that. That's actually one of my bigger problems with this movie. Is it is incredibly jarring. You can tell when you're watching, oh, this is Zack Snyder was definitely behind the camera at this point. Joss Whedon was behind the camera at this point. It's two very different styles. Zack Snyder's is dark and gloomy. Joss Whedon's is light and humorous, and you can tell scene to scene. It's almost like it's a different movie from the vibe that you get, and that was weird, and it was really heavy towards the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, I think that's where it really showed the most. I think once the movie got up and running, it wasn't. I didn't have that problem as much. It felt at least consistent. That final battle felt like it was Zack Snyder. It felt like the end of all of his movies, that it goes into CG world. Like, it felt like the end of Batman v Superman when Wonder Woman shows up out of nowhere and helps him fight.
Yeah.
And they're in this weird, like, abandoned place in the middle of 2 giant cities. It had that kind of a feel going for it, and I was like, oh no, they're going to screw this up again. But it didn't go as far as I thought it was going to go into that. The final battle ends up taking place in this sort of chamber that is kind of nondescript, and at least it doesn't feel like a bunch of people running in slow motion on a red background.
Yeah, it was. I think this movie, while they chose a very weak villain from the DC list of villains, it benefited because he talked. If he didn't talk, it would have been exactly like the first movie with them fighting the cave troll from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
And so I thought that helped that final part click along.
Sure. I mean, but, the Marvel movies have that same problem. A lot of them have that same problem. And, like the first Avengers, the villain is completely forgettable. And that's sort of on purpose so that you have more investment in learning about all these new characters and how they fit together. So that part of it I understood. Like I'm not opposed to them having kind of a weak villain in this movie. If they were fighting like Mecha Joker or something like that, like somebody that we really want to know more about, then like I think they could have had a problem because they didn't have time to really give a backstory to that character. If they end up doing, since we can talk about spoilers now, if they end up doing some sort of Legion of Doom, like standalone movie and introduce a bunch of bad guy characters, like some sort of Suicide Squad, I mean, that might be a way to introduce, a better rogues gallery and do something else with it.
There are a lot they can choose from the Justice League canon. I don't know, like, and this is kind of the problem.
But this movie, it needed to focus on the Justice League and its members, not what they were up against. Like, what they were up against doesn't matter really in this movie. It's more of it's just the MacGuffin of why they come together.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll go with that.
I mean, who is the bad guy in the Avengers?
The Chitauri.
Okay.
And Loki. And Loki was the
sure.
villain.
And Loki, we had a whole movie to learn who he was before
True.
the Avengers came out. At least one. I
don't know.
Or two came out after the Avengers, I think.
Like, it's not so much a problem with this movie as it is a problem with DC as a whole, and it hurts because of the Superman character. He's so powerful. Like, through this entire movie, the Justice League is getting stomped by this guy so easily, and then Superman comes in and is like, done.
Mm-hmm.
Why is the Justice League even needed? Just have Superman.
Yeah.
And that doesn't build for a long series.
I don't know. I mean, I think another one of the things that this movie gets right is that you can start from this movie in the DC universe. You don't have to watch Man of Steel or Batman v Superman to be caught up with what's going on. It starts you with, Superman is dead, Batman feels guilty about it. That's really all you need to know going into this movie.
Just forget the other one happened.
Yeah, I mean, you should, because it's just a waste of 3 hours, and it's confusing as hell, and Man of Steel is completely unnecessary to all of this. It's like, we don't really need to know more about Lois Lane than she's Lois Lane. Like, we don't really need to see all the freaking problems that movie had.
I'm not a huge Superman fan, so I agree. So.
But yeah, it was better than I expected it to be. It's a middle of the road movie. It's a very, very average movie. And yeah, it would, if Marvel made this movie, it would be considered one of the worst ones. It would be, down there with Thor and Ant-Man. Iron Man. Yeah, Iron Man 2. That's a bad one.
It's terrible.
So, yeah. That's about all I have to say about that. So that was our discussion on the Justice League. If you like the way we do these, please like the video, subscribe, check out all the written and video reviews at dalemaxfield.com, and thanks for watching.